I don't know if writing this will help anyone, but I need to get it out. I need people to know what happened because I still don't believe it myself, even though I lived it. If you're someone who thinks being home alone is just a harmless thrill, like I used to, please read this carefully. My name is Dylan. I was 17 when it happened. I'm 21 now, and I haven't set foot in that house since the day it all came to light. My parents sold it 6 months after I begged them to, and I still wake up sweating at night, remembering the sound I heard, like a cough, but not quite human. But let me start from the beginning. I grew up in suburban Colorado, just outside Fort Collins. Pretty standard upbringing, small town, good schools, a close-knit neighborhood where everyone waves when you drive by. My parents are both teachers, so they've always been strict, but fair. I was an only child, and they were protective of me, especially after my mom had a miscarriage when I was 8. That hit them hard, and after that, they never tried for another kid. By the time I was 17, I'd convinced them I could handle a weekend alone. They had an anniversary trip planned, just 3 nights at a cabin near Estes Park, and I practically begged them to let me stay home instead of tagging along. I had school projects to finish, I said. I wanted to prove I was independent. The truth was, I just wanted the house to myself for once. They agreed, reluctantly. My mom cooked enough food for a week, labeled it all in the fridge, and left every emergency number taped to the side. Dad showed me how to reset the fuse box in case of a power outage, and then they left Friday morning, reminding me one last time, keep the doors locked and don't go near the crawl space. That crawl space had always creeped me out. It ran the entire length of the house beneath the floorboards, maybe 4 feet high in most places, packed with insulation and old holiday decorations. There was only one way in, a small wooden hatch in the laundry room, usually padlocked. My dad told me the lock was just to keep animals out, but I never once saw him go in there. The one time I asked about it, he just said, "Nothing down there but dust and cobwebs, Dylan." Friday night passed uneventfully. I reheated lasagna, played video games until 2 a.m., and crashed in my room. I woke up Saturday around noon, lounged in bed, texted some friends, and eventually started a paper for AP History. It was so normal. Until that night. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. Just a short, dry cough noise, muffled like someone clearing their throat behind a wall. I turned off the faucet and stood still, toothbrush hanging from my mouth. Silence. I checked the hallway. My bedroom. The kitchen. Nothing. Maybe I imagined it. But the smell in the laundry room was different. It was musty, like mold and sweat mixed with something earthy, like wet cardboard. The kind of smell you get from unwashed clothes stuffed in a gym bag for a week. I opened the door, flipped on the light, and stared at the trapdoor. It was still locked. I stood there for a full minute, just staring at it, listening. No sounds. No movement. The washer and dryer sat there in eerie stillness. I chalked it up to the house settling. Older homes creak and groan, pipes rattle. Maybe I'd let my imagination get the best of me. I closed the door and went back to my room. But I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about the way the air felt in the laundry room. Thicker somehow, like someone had been breathing in there before I walked in. Sunday morning, I woke up to a text from my friend Josh. "Yo, still want to hang tonight?" I almost said yes. I almost left that house and went over to his place for pizza and movies. But I told him I had too much homework and wanted to finish while I had the quiet. That decision still haunts me. That evening, I sat in the living room with my laptop, headphones on, music low. It was around 9 p.m. when I heard it again, clearer this time. Not a cough, a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across wood. I ripped off my headphones. Silence. I stood up, heart racing, and walked slowly toward the laundry room. This time, I didn't even make it to the door. I could hear it through the wall. Something shifting below the floorboards. Slow, deliberate. A rustling, dragging, thudding sound. And then another sound. A faint sniffing. I bolted back to my room, locked the door, and sat on the floor with my back against it, heart pounding. I didn't sleep. I kept thinking, there's no way someone could be under there. It's locked. I checked it. No one could have gotten in, right? But I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, someone had already been down there. What if they'd been there for weeks? The next morning, Monday, I woke up at 6 a.m. and did something I'd never done before. I unlocked the laundry room. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that it was all in my head. I got the key from the drawer in the kitchen, unlocked the padlock, and lifted the trapdoor. Cold, stale air hit my face immediately. The smell was worse now. Stronger. Rancid. I grabbed the flashlight from the garage and shined it into the crawl space. At first, I didn't see anything, just insulation, dirt, old plastic bins. The usual. But then, to the far left, maybe 20 feet in, I saw something that made my stomach flip. A mattress. Filthy. Stained. Next to it, a pile of snack wrappers, empty water bottles, and a crumpled sleeping bag. And a journal. I lowered myself halfway into the hole and reached for it. It was spiral bound, the cover soaked with grime. I flipped through it, squinting at the words scribbled in shaky handwriting. Page after page of the same sentence. He doesn't know I'm here. Over and over, hundreds of times. I scrambled out and slammed the hatch shut, heart hammering in my chest. I didn't call the police. I should have, but I panicked. My parents were due back in a few hours, and I was terrified that if I called 911 and they found out I'd opened the crawl space, they'd never trust me again. So instead, I locked it back up and waited. When my parents got home that evening, I hugged them like I hadn't seen them in years. My mom noticed immediately that I was pale and jumpy, and my dad asked if I'd been sleeping. I lied, told them I'd just stayed up too late. That night, I heard nothing, but I didn't sleep either. The next morning, I told my dad that I thought I heard a raccoon or something under the house. That was my excuse. He agreed to check the crawl space that afternoon. He didn't say much after. All I remember is the look on his face when he came back inside. He was pale. Stone-faced. He told my mom to go stay with her sister for a few days. Then he called the police. They found him. A man. He'd been living under our house for at least 3 weeks, maybe longer. He had a knife, duct tape, and a camera. The police said they found dozens of pictures, some of me through the floor vents. At night. While I slept. They arrested him that day. I never saw his face. I don't want to. Turns out he was a transient who drifted into the area. Had a history of mental illness and breaking into crawl spaces and basements to squat. He liked watching people live their lives unnoticed, like some twisted, voyeuristic game. They said he must have gotten in weeks ago, maybe while the house was being fumigated. Hidden in the yard, slipped inside while we were out. My parents had no idea. No one ever does. After that, we moved. My parents sold the house and relocated to a gated community. I never stayed home alone again. So yeah, I guess I'm writing this to tell others, especially kids, teens, anyone who thinks they're invincible. Check your crawl space. Lock your doors. Trust your gut. And if you hear a cough when you're supposed to be alone, don't just brush your teeth and go to bed. People always say the country is safer than the city, that nothing bad ever happens out there. But I'm writing this to tell you that's a lie. Or maybe it used to be true before the world got darker, before we stopped paying attention to the things that didn't make sense. My name's Jenna. I was 19 when this happened. Sophomore year of college. I just finished spring finals, and instead of going home, I took up my aunt's offer to house sit while she visited friends in Oregon. She lived in a small ranch house out in the quiet parts of Western Virginia, about 30 minutes from the nearest town. Her place sat on 5 acres, all surrounded by thick woods, with a long gravel driveway leading to the main road. It was peaceful, beautiful even, and completely isolated, which was exactly what I wanted. I'd just come out of a pretty bad breakup with my boyfriend, Trevor. It wasn't messy, but it was sudden. He ghosted me, then resurfaced with someone new a week later. I was still raw from it, emotionally tired. I told myself the quiet would be healing. I didn't know what real loneliness was until I spent a night there. The first day was uneventful. I brought my laptop, some groceries, and a pile of books. No Wi-Fi at the house, but I figured I'd write, journal, maybe even start that short story collection I always said I'd get around to. That first evening, I made pasta, opened a bottle of wine I wasn't technically old enough to drink, and watched the sunset from the back porch. Aunt Cora's house had these massive sliding glass doors that looked out over the tree line. No blinds, just a wide view of forest and grass, tinged orange and gold. When the sun went down, the house got quiet. Not just no traffic quiet, I mean total pressing silence, the kind that makes your ears ring a little. It made me uneasy, but I figured I'd get used to it. I went to bed around 11 and left a few lights on, just in case. At 2:17 a.m., exactly, I woke up. Not to a sound, but to a feeling, like I wasn't alone. I sat up in bed and listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no creaking floorboards, just stillness. I was about to roll over when something made me get up and walk into the living room. I don't know why, I just needed to look. And that's when I saw her. There was a girl standing at the sliding glass door. She wasn't knocking, wasn't moving, just standing there, barefoot, hair hanging limp and dark in front of her face, head tilted just enough to the side to be unnatural. She looked about my age, maybe younger, wearing a light hoodie and jeans, but both were filthy, wet at the cuffs like she'd been walking through the woods for a long time. I froze. We just stood there, me inside, her outside, separated only by a thin pane of glass. Then she raised her hand, slowly, pressed her palm flat against the door, and smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was off, like she was mimicking the idea of smiling. Her eyes didn't match it at all. They were wide and glassy, like she hadn't blinked in a while. I backed away, shaking. No way was I opening the door. I turned on every light in the house, grabbed my phone, and called 911. My voice was shaking so bad, the dispatcher kept asking me to repeat myself. She said an officer was on the way, but it would take time. It was a rural area. I stayed on the phone, crouched by the hallway with a kitchen knife I pulled from the drawer. When I finally peeked back into the living room, the girl was gone. Just gone. No footprints on the deck, no sound of running through the grass. The cop showed up 30 minutes later, and of course there was no sign of her. He was polite, maybe a little amused, took a quick walk around the property with his flashlight, told me to keep the doors locked, and gave me his direct number in case she came back. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I convinced myself it was a local teen messing around. Maybe someone hiking through the woods, got lost, saw the house. Weird, sure, but not supernatural. That's what I wanted to believe. But the next night she came back. Same time, same door. This time she had something in her hand. A Polaroid. She pressed it against the glass. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone trying to take a picture, but by the time I unlocked the screen, she was gone again. The photo was gone too, but I saw it, I swear to God. It was a picture of me, asleep, in that house, in that bed. I called the officer again, and when he arrived, I was practically hysterical. He searched the property for a second time, stayed for almost an hour, and finally told me, gently, that maybe I was under stress. Maybe the isolation was getting to me. He asked if I wanted to call my aunt or someone else to stay with me. I said no. I was too proud, too ashamed. The third night, I didn't turn off the lights. I didn't go to bed. I stayed on the couch with every lamp blazing, holding the knife like it was an extension of my arm. She came again, but not alone. There were two of them now. The second girl was taller, wearing a long coat and a scarf despite the warm weather. Her face was older, early 20s maybe, but her expression was the same, that weird, disconnected smile, like a doll. They stood side by side, shoulder to shoulder, hands flat against the glass. Staring, they didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me. And this time, I couldn't move either. I was frozen, like my body was locked in place. I don't know how long they stood there. It felt like hours. I only remember blinking, and they were suddenly gone again. When I finally got the courage to check the door, I found something wedged in the corner between the glass and the frame. Another Polaroid. This one was wrong. It showed me from behind, sitting on the couch, knife in hand, lights on. Exactly how I was sitting right then. I don't remember screaming, but my throat was raw by the time the police arrived again. They took me seriously that time. 2 officers stayed at the house for the rest of the night. One stayed parked outside while the other walked the perimeter with me, asking questions, but we never found the girls. And the worst part? The photos vanished. I had them. I swear I did. I left the second one on the coffee table before the cops came, and when I pointed to it, it was gone. No trace. They must have come back while I was outside. The officers suggested I leave. Stay with someone. So I called my aunt, told her something came up, and left that night with the officers following me back into town. I never went back. My aunt didn't believe me when I told her, thought it was a stress dream or a prank gone too far. She stayed at the house for 2 more weeks without incident, but sometimes she says she hears things at night now, tapping on the glass, scraping along the back porch. Once, she said her dog growled at the sliding door for an hour straight, hair raised, unmoving, while she saw nothing. I didn't tell her what I really believe. I think those girls weren't just messing with me. I think they were waiting, watching, waiting for the right moment to be invited inside. I've never told anyone about this, not the full story. And after what happened, I've spent years trying to convince myself it wasn't as bad as I remember, that my mind exaggerated it somehow. But I know what I saw, what I heard. And if I'm sharing it now, it's because I think it could happen to someone else. Maybe it already has. My name is Marcus. I'm 28 now, but this happened when I was 14. I lived with my mom in a small 2-bedroom house on the edge of our neighborhood in Maryland. It was just the two of us after my dad left when I was 9. He moved out west and never called again, so mom and I learned how to manage on our own. She worked nights at the hospital, third shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So by the time I hit middle school, I was used to being home alone in the evenings. I was a quiet kid, good grades, kept to myself. I didn't have a lot of friends, but I read a lot and played video games to keep myself busy. I wasn't scared to be alone. I liked the silence. At least, I used to. It started on a Tuesday night in October. I remember because I had a science quiz the next morning and was up late reviewing flashcards in the living room. Mom had left around 6:30 like usual. She always made sure the doors were locked before she left and reminded me to turn off the TV before bed. I told her I'd be fine. I always was. Around 10 p.m., I heard the first knock. It came from the front door. Soft, 3 taps. I muted the TV and waited. No one knocked again. I got up slowly and peered through the peephole. No one was there. Our porch light was broken, had been for months, so everything beyond the glass storm door was just blackness. I figured maybe someone had knocked at the wrong house, or maybe it was a prank. I sat back down. Not 5 minutes later, I heard it again. But this time it came from the back door. I froze. We had a small wooden deck out back, and the kitchen door had a big glass panel in it. I crept in there with the lights off and peeked through the curtains. Again, nothing. Just darkness and trees beyond the backyard fence. I locked both doors, turned on the hallway light, and tried to go back to studying. But my heart was pounding. My brain kept feeding me scenarios. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe someone broke down and needed help. Maybe it was a kid. Or maybe someone was checking to see if I was alone. I didn't sleep much that night. The next evening, I told Mom what happened. She brushed it off, said it was probably a package delivery or some kids being dumb. But when I asked her to stay home that night, she hesitated, then said no. Just keep the doors locked, baby, she told me. You're safe here. Nothing's going to happen. And for a while, she was right. 3 nights passed with nothing, until Friday. That night, it started just after midnight. I had fallen asleep on the couch watching a movie. When I opened my eyes, the screen was dark. The DVD menu was looping. The living room was cold, and someone was knocking again. But this time, not at the doors, at my bedroom window. I jumped off the couch and stood frozen in the hallway, listening. The knocks came again. Light, rhythmic, knuckle against glass. It was impossible. My bedroom was on the 2nd floor. I crept up the stairs, one step at a time, knees shaking. I didn't want to go into the room, but I had to. I had to see. I eased the door open. The room was pitch black. I reached out, flicked the light switch, and the knocking stopped. I inched toward the window and pulled back the curtain just enough to look outside. Nothing. No ladder, no tree branch, no person. Just the backyard, still and dark. I barely slept the rest of the night. Every time I drifted off, I'd hear that faint tap, tap, tap in my head again and jolt awake. The next morning, I begged Mom to take it seriously. She looked worried, but there wasn't much she could do. We didn't have the money for cameras or security systems, so instead, she nailed the downstairs windows shut and gave me her old softball bat to keep next to the bed. That was the first weekend she had off in weeks. But Monday night, she was gone again, and he came back. I was brushing my teeth around 10 p.m. when I heard it. Not knocking this time, something else, whispering. I turned off the faucet and leaned closer to the bathroom window. The voice was faint, raspy, male, repeating something over and over. At first, I couldn't make it out. Then I realized he was saying my name. Marcus, Marcus, come out. My blood ran cold. I backed out of the bathroom and slammed the door. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I didn't want to know how he knew my name. I sat in the hallway with the bat in my lap, rocking slightly, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. He whispered until nearly dawn, sometimes soft and slow, sometimes fast and angry. Once he laughed, a dry, joyless sound that made my skin crawl. By the time Mom came home, he was gone again. I told her everything. She called the police. 2 officers came out that morning, checked the property, even walked the woods behind the house. They found nothing, no footprints, no signs of forced entry, no strangers in the neighborhood. The officer asked if maybe I'd fallen asleep and dreamed it. I shook my head, too tired to argue. That day, Mom took me to the hardware store. We bought motion lights and pepper spray. She gave me her cell phone and made me promise to call 911 if anything else happened. But that night, he came inside. I don't know how. The doors were locked, the windows sealed. But at 3:11 a.m., I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not mine. Someone was in the room with me. I lay perfectly still, clutching the bat, straining to hear. The breathing was shallow, labored, coming from the corner near my closet. I didn't move. Didn't even blink. And then he spoke. Not a whisper this time, a full sentence. Marcus, I'm in your room. I lunged out of bed and swung the bat toward the sound. It hit nothing. I turned on the light. The room was empty. Closet open. Nothing inside but my clothes and an old toy box. No sign of anyone. I ran out of the house in my pajamas, barefoot, and sat on the curb with the bat across my lap until the sun came up. When Mom got home, she found me shaking and speechless. That was the last night I ever stayed in that house alone. I don't know who he was or what he was, but I know this. He was real. He knew my name. He knew where I slept, and he wanted something. We moved 2 months later. Mom found a job closer to her sister's place, and we got a small apartment in a complex with gates and neighbors on all sides. I still sleep with the lights on, and sometimes when the wind is just right, I swear I hear him again, just outside the window, saying my name. I've never been what you'd call social. I don't go to parties. I don't hang out after school. I never cared about sports or dances or anything that made high school tolerable for most people. My name's Ethan. I was 17 when this happened, senior year, middle of winter break. I wasn't exactly popular, but I was dependable, quiet, and polite, which is probably why the Carsons picked me to watch their house while they went to Florida for Christmas. They lived 2 doors down from us, a retired couple, friendly in a small town way. They knew I didn't go anywhere for the holidays. My mom worked double shifts at the grocery store, and Dad's been out of the picture for years. So they asked if I'd mind checking in on their place twice a day. Feed their old cat, make sure the pipes didn't freeze, bring in the mail. Easy enough. They even gave me a key and said I could hang out there during the day if I wanted. Help yourself to whatever's in the fridge, Mrs. Carson told me. We trust you. I should have said no. The first couple of days were fine. It was cold. December in Pennsylvania always is. But their house was warm and smelled like cinnamon and cedar. Very cozy, very lived in. The kind of place that always felt like it had a fire going, even when it didn't. Muffin, their cat, was an obese, grumpy tabby who only moved to eat and hiss at shadows. I'd feed her, check the thermostat, make sure the lights were on timers like they'd asked. Then I'd head back home, just spend the night reading or gaming while my mom worked late. That routine worked until the 4th night. It snowed hard that evening. The kind of snow that muffles everything, makes the world too quiet. I trudged over with my boots crunching, mail tucked under my coat. It was already dark by 5 p.m. When I stepped into the house, I noticed two things right away. First, Muffin wasn't waiting at the door like she usually was. That cat never missed a meal. Second, it was cold. Just not freezing, but definitely colder than it should have been with the thermostat set to 72. I called out for her. Muffin? No sound. I walked through the house listening, nothing but the wind against the windows. Then I heard it. Thump from beneath me. The floorboards in the hallway creaked, not under my feet, but like underneath them, like something moved in the crawl space below. I froze, then told myself it was the house settling. Old beams, pipes groaning. Happens all the time, right? Still, I made a quick loop through the rooms. Living room fine, kitchen fine, bedrooms empty, basement door locked, same as always. Everything looked normal, except Muffin was still missing. And then I saw it. Her food dish in the kitchen was completely empty. Not just the food gone, clean, licked so spotless it was bone dry, like someone or something had been starving. That didn't sit right. She usually left a few bits behind. Always did. I called her again, checked under the couch, behind the chairs. No sign. Then I heard another sound, a soft scrape like nails dragging across wood. It came from the floor vent near the hallway. I dropped to my knees, pressed my ear near it. At first, nothing. Then, breathing. Low. Raspy. Wet. I jumped back, heart hammering. I wanted to believe it was wind. Maybe the cat got stuck down there somehow. But Muffin was a fat, lazy creature. She didn't crawl into vents. And even if she had, this didn't sound like her. I didn't go back that night. The next morning, I told my mom I didn't feel like checking the house and stayed home. She was too tired from work to argue, but guilt got the better of me by the afternoon. So I went back. It was a clear, icy day. Sky bright but gray, trees bare, snow turning dirty at the edges of the sidewalk. I opened the front door and found the kitchen light on. I hadn't left it that way. I was sure of it. And worse, the fridge door was ajar. Inside, all the lunch meat was gone, not neatly removed, just gone. Wrappers torn open, half a bottle of orange juice tipped over, like someone had clawed through it. I should have called the cops. I know that now. But I didn't want to get in trouble. I was scared they'd think I was lying or snooping or trying to steal some, so I cleaned it up, took a breath. Then I heard the basement door click, not slam, not creak, just click, as if it had just been closed. I walked slowly to the hallway. The basement door was closed, same as always, but the lock, it was unlatched. I leaned close and listened. Nothing. Still, I relocked it. Then I left, told myself I was imagining things, that the cold air was making the house act weird, that cats wander off sometimes. The last thing I did was check the crawlspace hatch outside. It was under the back deck, sealed with a rusted padlock the Carsons had never mentioned. Only the lock was gone, and the hatch, it was open. Just an inch, just wide enough for something to slip inside. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the sounds, the breathing, the empty food bowl. I told myself again to call the police, but what would I even say? Hey, someone's maybe living in the crawl space of my neighbor's house and possibly ate their cat? No one would believe that, and yet deep down I already knew. Someone was down there. I didn't go back until Christmas Eve. Mom was working a 12-hour shift and I was feeling like crap for neglecting the place. I bundled up, packed a flashlight, and brought a few cans of tuna to leave out, just in case Muffin came back. The snow had crusted into ice. The sun was setting early again. I stepped inside, and the house smelled different, like something had rotted, sour and rank, hidden under bleach and potpourri. I went straight to the kitchen and froze. The cabinet doors were all open, every single one. Pots and pans on the floor, drawers pulled halfway out, utensils spilled everywhere. Something had been looking for something, or nesting, or playing. There was a trail of reddish-brown streaks across the tile, dried, flaking, blood. I followed it with my eyes and saw Muffin, or what was left of her. She was wedged behind the trash can, stiff and pale. Her side was torn open, ribs exposed, most of her face gone. I dropped the flashlight. It clattered across the floor and rolled toward the hallway. And that's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of someone crawling. Scrape, drag, thump from beneath me again. I stared at the floor. And then the vent popped up, just an inch. I saw fingers, long, filthy, blackened at the tips, nails like yellow glass curling around the edge of the grate. Something sniffed, loud and deep, like it could smell me. I ran, didn't shut the door, didn't look back. Just bolted through the snow and back to my house, locked myself in, and called 911. The police found nothing. No sign of a break-in, no body. Muffin was gone when they got there. No fingerprints, no footprints in the snow. They checked the crawl space, said it was empty. I overheard one of the officers say it was probably just a raccoon. But raccoons don't unlatch doors. They don't open fridges. And they sure as hell don't whisper, because that night I woke up to someone knocking on my bedroom window, second floor. Just like in the other story I told you, but this time I didn't go to the window because I heard the voice again, the same one I heard in the vents, low, gurgling, right outside the glass. It said, "Open up, Ethan. I'm still hungry." My name's Caleb. I'm 20, and I go to school up in Vermont, small liberal arts college, cold as hell most of the year. Winter break was coming, and I hadn't planned to go home at all. I was going to stay on campus, chill in the dorms, work on a paper, eat ramen in peace. But then my mom called and said she and her new boyfriend, Dale, were taking a trip to Arizona to reconnect. She asked if I'd mind house sitting for a couple of weeks, just me and the place I grew up in. Honestly, I wasn't thrilled about it. I hadn't lived there full time since I was 17, and I had mixed memories. It was quiet, sure, but the kind of quiet that starts to feel too heavy if you're alone in it long enough. Still, I said yes. They left the next morning. I got in the following evening, took a cab from the airport. Snow was falling in that gentle, disorienting way, and everything was so still it felt staged, like walking onto a movie set. The house looked the same as ever. White siding, dark green shutters, a single porch light glowing warm against the dark. When I unlocked the door and stepped inside, I felt this strange lurch in my gut, like deja vu and dread mixed into one. But I told myself it was just nostalgia. I couldn't have been more wrong. The first night, I unpacked and made some dinner. Nothing major, just heated up a frozen lasagna. The house creaked and popped in ways I'd forgotten. Normal for a structure that old, I figured. Just the wood settling. But then, around midnight, I heard something else. A step. Not a creak. Not a groan. A solid step, like someone walking overhead. I paused the movie I was watching and listened. Another step, then another. In the attic, it was unmistakable. At first, I thought it might be a squirrel or raccoon that got in through the vents. But the footsteps weren't frantic or scampering. They were deliberate, pacing, back and forth. I got up and checked every door and window. All locked. Even the attic hatch in the hallway ceiling looked untouched. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was up there. I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I told myself it had been a dream, sleep-deprived paranoia. But when I opened the fridge to make breakfast, I noticed something off. The orange juice carton was out, not just out, uncapped, sitting on the counter. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even unpacked the groceries yet. I thought maybe I'd forgotten. Maybe I'd done it without thinking. That afternoon, I went to the hardware store and bought a stepladder and a padlock. Figured I'd check the attic, just to be sure, and then secure it afterward. It took me a while to work up the nerve to actually open the hatch. I don't know what I expected. Maybe rats. Dust. Cobwebs. What I didn't expect was evidence. Old blankets laid out like a makeshift bed. A pile of empty food wrappers, granola bars, chips, even some of the emergency MREs we kept in the basement. A flashlight, low on batteries, a pair of grimy sneakers, and a notebook. I picked it up. Inside were pages and pages of tight, slanted handwriting. Rambling entries like someone writing stream of consciousness over weeks, paranoid stuff. Obsessive notes about the layout of the house. Lists of noises, when they happened, what caused them. And then, this entry. Boy's back. Heard him open door. He walks heavy. Not like them. Alone. Should be careful now. He's not like them. Smarter maybe? Watch more. Wait. I dropped the book and backed down the ladder. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Someone had been living in our attic, and they knew I was there. I called the police. They searched the house top to bottom. Didn't find anyone. Didn't find fingerprints either. Just traces someone had been squatting, like food residue, the blanket nest, and the notebook. But the guy was gone, or hiding. They said to keep the place locked up and to call again if I saw or heard anything suspicious. So I did. I locked every window, bolted the doors, even propped a chair under the doorknob at night like I was in some old horror movie. But it didn't matter, because he was still there. 3 nights later, I woke up to the sound of breathing, not mine, not close, just outside my bedroom door. Shallow, uneven, like someone with asthma or something worse. I didn't move, didn't even blink. The doorknob rattled, once, twice, then stopped. I lay there in the dark, holding my breath until dawn. When I finally opened the door, there was nothing there except something drawn in pencil on the wall. A smiley face, big, round, cartoonish eyes, a long, curved mouth, all teeth. The smile was too wide. Wrong. I stared at it for a long time, then I painted over it. I didn't sleep the next night. I stayed up, sat in the living room with every light on, a baseball bat across my lap. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard something again. This time it wasn't upstairs. It was in the walls, behind the drywall, near the heating vent. Soft scratching, then a whisper. "Are you awake?" I nearly threw up. I ran outside in my socks, didn't care how cold it was. I called the cops again. This time they brought dogs, searched the whole place. Again, nothing. But when they left and I came back inside, I noticed something new. The notebook. It was on my pillow. A new entry was circled. "He calls for help too easily. Makes it hard to rest. He doesn't like games, but I do." I called my mom the next morning, told her I was leaving. I didn't care about the house or the responsibility or the goddamn security deposit. She said I was being dramatic, that I was probably stressed from school and reading too many thrillers. That pissed me off more than anything. I packed a bag, booked a hotel for 2 nights. But as I was walking out, I realized something. My laptop was gone. So was my charger and my spare phone. I checked the drawers, emptied. My emails had been logged out. My passwords had all been reset. I sat down, trembling. Then I looked at the wall again. That smiley face had come back. Only this time, it had my face inside it. My features, my eyes, my hair, drawn in pencil by someone who had clearly studied me for days, maybe longer. I didn't stay in the house after that. I stayed with my old high school friend Marcus for the next week. I didn't tell him everything, just enough that he didn't ask questions when I insisted on locking the doors and checking the windows every hour. My mom came back after New Year's. She called me from the driveway. She was furious. Said the house was trashed, that someone had written all over the attic walls. Scribbled pages, torn from books, strung up like decorations. Food gone, mattresses slashed open. There was even a hole punched through the bathroom mirror. She asked me if I was on drugs. I told her to call the police. She did. They found fingerprints this time, but they didn't match anyone in the system. The only thing they recovered was a single shoe print, barefoot, deeply pressed into the insulation of the attic, like the person had been waiting up there, watching, listening, walking around only when I was still. I don't go back to that house anymore. My mom moved out last year. She didn't say why, but I can guess. She doesn't talk about it. Neither do I. But I still hear things sometimes, even in my dorm now. I catch glimpses of shadows in places they shouldn't be. I wake up to the sound of breathing just outside my door. And a few weeks ago, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a drawing, the smiley face, and under it scrawled in that same handwriting, "Found you again. You blink too slow." If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for reading our stories, our confessions, really. None of us set out to be part of anything like this. We were just people alone in our homes thinking the worst thing that could happen was a blown fuse or a late night storm. But the truth is, sometimes the worst thing isn't what's outside trying to get in. Sometimes it's what's already inside, waiting. We told you these stories not to scare you for fun, but because maybe, just maybe, if you know what happened to us, you'll pay a little more attention. Maybe you'll listen when the walls creak at the wrong hour. Maybe you'll check twice that your doors are locked. Maybe you'll notice that shadow that shouldn't be there, the one watching, the one waiting for the lights to go out. Because being home alone isn't always the safest place to be, especially when you're not really alone. Sleep well. Let me know